Hello, welcome back to the More Fun Making It Mini Virtual Pinball Table Build episode 12. I hate that YouTube makes you say keywords at the top, it sounds so naff. Oh well. My name is Lee, and in this episode you will witness a transformation. This little box of brown wood and glue and sawdust will emerge as, well, you'll have to see what it turns into, but rest assured it won't be a butterfly. The part I'm working on here is the back door. Like the rest of the body of the cabinet, it needs a coat of acrylic primer before any final coats of paint are applied. I should explain that in the end, having painted the whole cabinet with a water-based eggshell, I sanded all of that off and went back to just the white acrylic primer. You'll see this later when I start drawing the artwork on the side in pencil. I found the texture of the eggshell paint too difficult to draw on, and when I tried to sand it flat, it started to come off in chunks. So in the end it all had to come off. Before I start to paint for real, I had one last small job to complete. In the back of the machine where the mains lead enters, I need to make a box to protect the live connections from being accidentally touched. The back door will be used to access the main volume controls and the amp volume controls for the exciters, so it needs to be electrically safe for anyone putting their hands in there. I also need to separate it from the reset button side of the back panel, so I'm building this box to go halfway across here. The inside of the cabinet is painted, so wood glue will be very weak here. I'm using some Yoo-hoo glue and some brad nails, which will be plenty strong enough for this. For Christmas, I received a new tool/toy to go with my compressor, a pneumatic 23 gauge pin nailer. This fires tiny pins that are barely visible in the wood. It's the cheapest one I could find on Amazon and not amazing quality, but it seems to work fine. I need this part to not touch the side of the cabinet. I've made sure to mount as little as possible to the walls of the cabinet to ensure the exciters have an equal amount of soundboard as possible on each side. I've left a slot in the side of the lid for the wire leading to the power strip. And that's all of the building complete. Probably. The only thing left to make for the cabinet itself is the front door and the speaker covers, but I've decided to leave that for now. The painting took a lot longer than anticipated, and I really wanted to get another episode out before too long. So the coin door, which will also take some time, will have to wait for a wrap-up episode after this one. Now it's time to paint, or draw. So I've done something like this before on a previous build, but that was a different image and a different scale. So this is still all a bit new to me, and I've had to learn as I go what works and what doesn't. On this first attempt, I drew all of the straight lines in with a ruler and then penciled all of the outlines for the black parts of the art. You can see here the cabinet is perched on top of a plastic box. This is not very stable. Also, the fact this fold-up wall-mounted workbench only has one leg also makes this not very stable. Added to this, the tripod holding the projector is not, stable either. This ended up being a frustrating evening of work. This was also on the bad surface I mentioned earlier. I was never happy with it, so I decided to sand it and the eggshell paint off and start again. The paint I was planning to use for the blue of the image might have been sitting in my shed for a while. When I finally mixed it back into something more like paint and less like rotten egg, I decided the colour was too pale. In the end, I bought the darkest mid-blue I could find in my local decorating supplier, which turned out to be too green. So I mixed it with some of the pale blue to tone it down, and it ended up with an amazing colour that I could not be happier with. I screwed an extra leg to the workbench, used a solid wooden box to prop the cab up, and a better tripod for the projector, and off I went. On this left side of the cab, after masking the lines using the projector, I painted all of the blue on without using pencil lines as a guide. This was quite difficult. The projector I'm using this time is not the sharpest, and painting in the dark isn't an easy thing to do. Okay, that sad face is because the masking has not worked very well in places. It ends up not being a big problem, which I fix later. But I learned to really work the edges into place when I masked the lines on the other side. But in the end, it doesn't look too bad, and you can see here the rough edges to the straight masked lines. For the black parts, I decided to go back to pencil first. This means I can refine the lines if I don't like them later. With all the guidelines in place, it was time to put some black paint on. This is where the image finally starts to look like it should. If you caught the last live stream, number 3 in this build series, you will have had the pleasure of watching me paint in real time, and the paint drying as well, while talking rubbish and having a laugh with the viewers. I should point out here that the next live stream I'll be putting this back together live on camera with no special effects and actual physical peril. Well, not much peril unless you count a saw back, but all the other stuff is real. Make sure you click on the notification bell if you want to see that. The more of this I painted, the better I got at it. I learned that a tiny brush is not ideal. You can still paint really detailed stuff with a slightly larger brush tip. And I'd started with paint that was way too thick. It needs to flow along the lines. It'll need 2 coats anyway, so trying to make it thick enough to cover in one is a waste of time. I also learned not to worry about my mistakes. It's far easier to go back and fix them all later. Now, the other side. Using my newly learned skills, this side went much smoother. This time I penciled in all of the lines of the figure and then masked all of the straight lines. This time taking extra care to make sure the tape was pressed into the surface really well. I then painted in all of the blue around the outside. Once this was complete and second coated, I could remove the masking tape and, without using the projector, paint in all the remaining blue areas. And then onto the black again. My hand is not the steadiest, but I found that I could straighten out any wobbly lines on the second coat a lot easier than if I tried to make it perfect on the first try. This worked out well once I realised this. Small mistake there, I just paint around it and then come back later and fix it. And that's the art complete. Taking off the masking tape left a slightly ugly line along the edge of the oak trim. A few minutes with a small brush sorted that out. There are two of the points of the white lines that I want to come around to the front of the cab. Which just left the back box section. And it's looking pretty. Engage lively mode. Right, this is the back door that I used as a test painter. That's going to be the outside of it, but this is all going to stay on the inside. I'm going to keep all this. I quite like this. And I've used it to test out certain things like the new airbrush and how to do the masking when I did the main part of the cab. But the thing I did before I went to bed last night was spray some polyurethane protector, and this one, I don't know what this is. It's not, it doesn't say polyurethane on it, but it's just a clear coat of some kind. Not durable, it doesn't say. Probably says on the back somewhere. But it's acetone based, same as this. But I thought I would test them both on the paint surface that the pinball cab has to make sure that it's compatible. And I'm very, very glad I did. So this one, which I've used before on other projects. In fact, I think I used this on Beaten Code a long time ago. This one I sprayed here, and this one I sprayed here in this section. Now, one of the things I'm looking for is yellowing, and there is some discoloration here, but that's not because of the coat. That's where I actually sprayed some orange paint on here as a test with the new with the new airbrush. So this section that I sprayed last night, I did them both last night, and I masked off. There is a strip here where there isn't a strip right here where there isn't any coating at all. But yeah, so this section here hasn't cured. It's still tacky, and it's 20 odd hours later. It is quite cold in here. The heating hasn't been on in here all day, but it's not that cold. I would expect it to have cured a little bit, and you can see that there is a finish there. And what I'll do is I'll just run my nail down there. You can see it's actually soft enough that I can scrape it off. It's really not very good. Let's go a bit closer, and I wonder if I can get through to some of the black. Yeah, look, I've taken some of the lettering off. That's just like sprayed acrylic, so it's not going to be very tough. Whereas this one, which is this Rust-Oleum, they're both Rust-Oleum, but this is crystal clear protective coat. This one is super smooth and hard. You can hear my nail grabbing on that, but this, nothing. That's rock hard with single coat, and that's gone off perfectly. So I'll be using this. You might have spotted the button label decals on the front earlier. I made this stencil and used my new airbrush to make those. It's very useful, and I'm still learning how to use it. I can see it getting a lot of use in future projects. I'm not even sure what's happening here. I think the paint fumes must have been getting to me. Oh look, I've gone all YouTuber. Like and subscribe. Is that what it even says? Lixen subsoribe. You tighten that tripod up good, yeah? Must be something really great we're missing here. When do you think he'll notice? Soon? Oh look, there's my new compressor. I really need to vacuum. Ah, the penny drops. Okay, the inside of the back box. This black section has always looked a little rough. I originally painted it with a brush, and the brush mark texture shows quite a lot on the black paint. So I decided to give my new airbrush a go with some black primer. This is only a cheap airbrush from Amazon. Nothing posh, but I really like it. Once I stopped trying to put the wrong sort of paint through it, it started to work out really well. You know what's been missing from this episode? A stupid mistake. Well, I promise not to let you down. There's still time. The time has come to put the final coat on the cabinet. A clear coat of lacquer, as I discussed earlier. The thing with spray paints like this is they don't work well at cold temperatures. Currently, it's not too warm in these parts. I would normally do this in the open air or in a well-ventilated shed, but if I wanted to ever finish this very long project, I'll just have to get it done in here. The first thing I should point out is the mask I've put on here is not suitable, as I believed it was, for aerosol spray paint fumes. Once I realised the fumes were affecting me, I stepped outside and changed to a mask that was better. I later realised this one was only one better on the scale of mask protection. It worked, but was not as good as it really should have been. This was a stupid and dangerous mistake, and I'm lucky I realised in time. Anyway, despite my unhealthy stupidity, I managed to get a really nice coat of lacquer on the whole cab. I'm really pleased with how the ochre's turned out. After the live stream, I think there will be one last episode showing the final tidy up of the coin door and a few other odd jobs speaker covers. They will probably include some video showing it off in action. Don't forget to turn on notifications if you want to know when I'll be streaming the live build. See you soon!